Welcome to Board Game Archaeologists. We play time-worn games from the past. I'm Hunter,
I'm Rob.
and today we're looking at Horrified.
Horrified from Ravensburger. A much more current game, not one of our golden oldies, but this one's from 2019. It's made for 1 to 5 players, but there's actually a few extra characters that I think you could sneak in, and it's made for 10 and above.
The object of the game is to defeat the monster or monsters of choice.
And the monsters come with the Invisible Man, the Frankenstein monster, and the Bride, the Creature, the Mummy, Dracula, and Wolfman. And we'll get to those cards later. There's a little bit of a lot in this, but we're going to try to make it real super simple for you. The game also comes with your characters that you can choose from, and they all have their own special traits. We have villagers, otherwise known as kind of victims. And these villagers are like Abbott and Costello and Elizabeth from Frankenstein and stuff like that. We have our perk cards, which are very important, and our monster cards, which dictates a big part of the game. These are all special pieces that work with the monster cards that we'll show you in a minute. We have your character cards. We have your doom thing for when a terror level builds up. We have a bunch of chits, they're called, but they're numbered, colored pieces that say exactly where they're supposed to be located. So you can find them when you pick them up. You'll go, oh, this one, the red one goes to the barn. This one goes to the tower. And that's how you kind of populate your map with all the power coins you're going to need. Because almost every single thing you do with the monster deals with how many of these, what color, and how many. Also comes with a Fury flame, and the Fury flame is part of the monsters. And we can talk about that in a minute. It really means that one monster is a Fury each turn or each time until it changes, and that Fury monster gets more hits. And then we also have some tiles that are for special places. So if you're playing the Creature from the Black Lagoon, you're going to have to place this camp one over the camp, and that gives you the instructions for what you need to do to win the creature adventure.
But setting up, you'll take 12 of these chits, which starts in a 60 bag. And so you'll take 12 to start out and distribute them where they say to go. And from there, people will pick out their character. And after you have your monster or monsters picked, because generally speaking, the more monsters that you pick, the more challenging the rounds are going to be, and each have kind of a different level of complexity. So that can be, the difficulty in this game is a learned one. You kind of figure it out as you play it. And then from there, you'll take the person who has eaten garlic the most recent, and that person will be the first person to have a hero phase.
Right, and if you can't guess it, roll dice or something like that. And the dice in this game are cool. You get 3 dice, and they come with little stars, which are like the POW, like you got in hit, and then they come with the asterisks, which is a special, kind of a special event for each monster. So like with the creature, you're moving an item to somewhere, this thing might take that item away.
Yeah, and the monster will always have a phase after a player does. So generally speaking, the more players you have playing the game, the more difficult the game is going to be, because when you have a character here, for example, you think that you're going to be safe if the monster's across the board. But if you're playing with 3 other people, a lot can happen in 3 phases.
Right, you populated the board. And in order to win, once you get through that monster deck, the game is over. And if the game gets over and you haven't defeated your monster, the game is over.
And there's really only 3 ways that the game can end. Rather, the heroes triumph by dealing with the monsters in their specific ways. Time is up, meaning that you run out of monster cards to use, or the terror level reaches maximum and the game is over.
Yeah. And the terror level is used by, if one of your characters are killed, they kind of get knocked out, moved off the board, and then brought into the hospital the next turn. But that costs 1 terror level. If one of your villagers, who randomly get put kind of on the board dealing with your monster cards, gets attacked by a monster, another terror level goes down. We played a game the other night that we hit 2 terror levels because the monster not only killed the character, but also killed the villager. So this terror level thing can really go down fast. And then, it seems like the more villagers out there, the more danger it is. But let's quickly go through the monster cards, because each of them have their own special unique kind of items. So starting with Frankenstein and the Bride, or Frankenstein's monster, and they're very clear to tell you that it's the monster, it's not Frankenstein, but they're going to call it Frankenstein because that's what the villagers do. And this has been a long time running thing. But yeah, the monster and the bride. So for their card, they have their own special kind of wheel area. And you put this wheel kind of like an old electronic Metal Gear kind of things that I collect actually. And when they're on the gear, you use a yellow chit for the monster, Frankenstein, and you use a blue chit for the bride. And you use the number on the chit, be it 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that number, you get to turn the dial that many points. And get to move that monster 1, 2, 3, or 4 spaces away from you or towards the bride. Because in the Frankenstein version, you're trying to keep the monsters apart to teach them enough humanity so they can live in peace together. So your goal is to turn up both the gears all the way to the monster is number 11, the bride is number 8, and once you've done that, the coins flip over, and then you try to get the monsters together and they live in harmony and you've won the game.
And the Invisible Man is really all about gathering evidence. So going to the inn, the mansion, the barn, the laboratory, and the institute to collect a chit, and then go back to the precinct to then, kind of tattle on him. And after that point, then you need to actually hunt him down. One of his exclamation point activities is moving him closer to a villager. So he really preys on those NPC type characters, and he has a high fury meter. So it's more likely that another monster is going to be in fury than he is.
The creature from the Black Lagoon really takes place at the camp, and there's a special little placeholder that I told you about earlier. But whenever you're at the camp, you can use a yellow, blue, or red, and that moves your boat along. So there's a boat going along a stream, and say you have one action point, you can use your blue, you move to the blue. And then if you have yellow, you can move to yellow. You can use as many action points with that color to get your boat to the creature's lair, and then make it to the creature and scare him off.
There's also the Wolfman, which is a very, very aggressive character. And his exclamation point will be that every person in the Wolfman space when he attacks will be hit as well. So if you're carrying a villager and he gets an exclamation point when he's attacking you, he'll attack the villager as well, increasing terror really fast. The whole point of his is getting these blue items to fulfill the point value on the shelves, and then hunting him down and administering the cure.
So the mummy, you've got 6 scarabs randomly put on the board. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what they do is they have you randomly put it on the opposite side. So your 5, 6, and 4 scarabs will be over by your 1, 2, and 3, and your 1, 2, and 3 will be over by your 4, 5, and 6. And so you randomly put it there. And if you do roll one of those asterisks, you have to flip one over, and that will cost you an extra point because you are bringing your yellow chit in and using that point number on the top. This one's a garlic one, and it has a 2 on it. So that means I can either turn a scarab over or slide it 1 and slide it 2. But using your action points, you might be able to use 3 or 4 yellows if you have them, meaning you could maybe move up to 8 or 9 times.
And then possibly the most simple, Dracula. There's 4 locations in the cave, the dungeon, the crypt, and the graveyard where he has these coffins. You have to gather enough 6 points of red cards or more to go and destroy each coffin. After all of them are destroyed, you can then hunt him down and defeat him with yellow cards. In going through the player cards, you start with your actions, how many action points you have, your special action, which most characters have this, where you'll be able to do something unique with each of them, and where they start off in the map.
Yep, and kind of like the chits, when you take these out of the bag, they actually say where they need to be located at each time. So the hero phase and the monster phase is really how the game is played, and that's really used with your card and your movement. And so with your characters, you would say, let's pick this guy because I like him. He's got a fez on, and he's got 4 action points, which I think are good. And he's got one of my favorite special actions where he can get a chit from an adjacent location. So So his character could be right here and actually count that as one and count this as one. So he's picking up all those chits in one location and he can continue moving his two other actions, which I think is super cool. So picking him out, you got your 4, you got your special action. You move, your action points are how many times you can either move, guide a villager to or from an adjacent space. So if you're here and a villager is either here, you can use one action to call them over or to push them away. Or you can pick up any number of chits. So if you're in this spot, if you're not this character and can't bring one in from adjacently, you'd have to count 1 and then pick up. Then there's the advance, which is your advanced kind of special action that you have. That everybody's got their own unique one. You can share an item, and that counts in action too. But again, there's special cards we'll talk about. But that counts as an action if you share it by trying to defeat a monster or doing one of the advanced things too, or the special actions. All cost action points. So you have to decide where you're going to put your action points into play.
And one of the things that don't require any action points is one of the perk cards. Everyone starts off with one, but these are gained by, for example, returning villagers to their preferred locations, back to safety. And these things can be used usually during any hero phase. I think every single one of them will say at the bottom, play during any hero phase. And so, making sure to communicate with your teammates to know when to use certain ones. Because like this one, the current player takes 2 additional actions. That, is huge. Yeah.
And there's a lot. There's a lot of really good ones. There's a couple that are kind of duddy that you just kind of do right away. Most of them you save. But the beauty about this game is you're playing with each other on this game. So you pick that card up and you read it to everybody and you kind of say, you let me know when you need to use this, or let's talk about it before your game, and we'll get back to that. And the other part of the game is so you have your hero action goes first, and then you have your monster action.
And the monster action is pretty easy to break down once you know what to look for. Because again, looking from top to bottom, you look at the top for how many items that you pull out during the monster phase. In this case, it's 0, but usually you'll take out 1 to 3 to have to disperse on the map. Then you go to the event itself, and it's usually creature specific, so you'll know if it applies or not. So
Right.
if you have the creature, then this card would make it retreat, so you'd place it back at the waterfront.
Right. So each monster card has its either own monster, or it brings a villager into effect, or has some bigger effect for everybody. So you'll see like 3 creature cards, 3 Frankenstein and Bride cards, maybe 6. But they each kind of have their own special cards, and then there's the generic ones that bring the villagers into play. And again, they're just victims. They're truly just victims.
And at the bottom of every card, possibly some of the most important information on it, is which icons, so which monsters are going to move in that turn. The fire being whichever one is in fury. And that means twice if the Wolfman, in this case, is also furious, he'd move twice. And in this case, the movement is right here, so it would be 1, and the dice would be right over there, and it would be 3. So they wouldn't move far, but they'd hit hard.
Right. And if your monster does not appear in this middle thing or along the bottom, and it's not the furied one where the flame is on it, and the fury always starts with the lowest numbered monster you're using. If you're only using one monster, it's always that monster. But if you got 2 monsters, it always starts with the lowest number. But that fury thing can really bite you in the pants when you're being attacked by Dracula and he's the fury monster. You can't get away, and he gets 2 free attacks on you with 3 dice. That can pretty much wipe you out, create a terror issue here, and put you way back down to the hospital.
And that's what the game is you take a hero phase, then a monster phase. And again, as we've said before, when you have a lot of people playing, the monsters get a phase for every time a player does. And so usually if you're playing with 2 people or so, you can be defensive and communicate like where you're going and what's realistic for a monster to be able to travel in 2 moves. However, when you've got 4 people on the board, things move very fast in Monster World.
It's populated, and people can be attacked from all directions. And, and I think that's part of the fun. If we want to get into our pros and cons, I think we covered a lot of the game. If you have questions, feel free to ask. And there's some really great how to play throughs on YouTube that I enjoyed and watched. Some of the simpler videos to me are some of the better videos. But pros and cons of it, I'm going to start off with I love the Universal Monsters. And some buddies of mine mentioned it, Scott and Jason, who do Monster Club TV on YouTube. I was down visiting in Chicago, and they said, "Hey, Rob, this game's on sale, man. You should really buy it. It's not that expensive." And I did, and I do not regret it. I instantly loved it. I found it to be super easy to learn. You know, you watch a couple videos and read through a very simple book. The plain manual is not gigantic. It's only like 19 pages or something like that, and very well illustrated. So that worked out really well. And you know, that's one thing about games to me is, are they daunting to learn, or are they simple? And these really play in order. It really plays from top to bottom, which is really helpful. So Universal Monsters, ease of gameplay, cool action figures that I know I will paint somewhere down the road, and the ability to make your own universe is pretty easy. And we'll talk about that in a future episode of our show, because I've been playing with one. We play tested it the other night and got our butts handed to us by Sleestacks. We survived the game, but almost didn't right away in the beginning. But there's so many good things about this game. I say run out and buy it.
Yeah, no, I can't argue with that. Because this was introduced to me shortly after we found it. And as simple as the rules were themselves, like the booklet's very easy to understand. And it's a lot of the games that we play, it's like sometimes the instructions will be overly verbose. This one isn't. It's very straightforward. And the best part is that it's kind of set up in such a way where it's very easy to communicate to other people. So when you're trying to get someone into something, like there's a lot of things that get in the way of that, where it's like if things even get a little complicated, you're risking losing a bunch of people right off the bat. And this is something that someone can walk a new player through really quickly and easily, and I really appreciated that. I really like a lot of the themes, and once you again understand like how it plays, I love cooperative stuff. I'm not the most competitive person. I'm very casual with these things, but when I'm cooperative, it feels a lot better. I feel like the energies usually between peoples are a little bit better. Just don't be one of those really, really overly commanding, like that's not an acceptable move kind of thing. And like it's a great way to put in parties or something.
It really is. And you can be one of those commanding people, but watch other people leave you out to dry when you do that, because you really have to play together. And if you play together, you're more likely to win. If you don't play together, you're going to be taken down quickly and the terror level will just go up. There's another version of this game coming out. I think it was released like right now, called America Mythological Monsters.
American Monsters, I believe.
Yeah. So it's more like, I don't know the monsters in it, but I would put a hodag in it, but I'm sure they didn't because it's very Wisconsin kind of creature. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll buy it right away. And it's the same kind of game, but you have more of the Jabberwocky, Spring Hill Jack stuff, I think, and monsters like that.
Well, thanks for watching.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about us, check us out at toyarchaeology.com. You can also find us on Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.